welcome for this third lecture. I'm grateful that you have joined in this lecture once again. Today, we are going to learn a little thing on antiprotozoal agents. Antiprotozoal agents are medicines that are used to treat a variety of infections caused by protozoa. Now, what are protozoa? Protozoa are one-cell eukaryotic mobile organisms like amoeba. And we have amoeba. Typical examples of protozoa include amoeba, plasmodium, giardia, trichomonas, trypanosomes. They are actually one-cell mobile living microorganisms. And some of these protozoa are free-living in fresh waters and soil. Others are parasitic, infecting bodies of human beings and other hosts. And so, they have various infections that they cause to human beings. Typical examples of infections that they cause include giardiasis, amoebiasis, pneumocystis cerevisiae infections, pneumonia, toxoplasmosis, leishmaniasis, trichomoniasis. More so, the most notorious is the malaria. All these conditions are caused by plasmodia. And most of these infections I've mentioned are caused by generally the plasmodia that infect immunocompromised patients. So they are said to be opportunistic infections. They are mostly opportunistic infections. But where the immunity is good, these conditions rarely occur in such healthy persons, except malaria that can break down the immune system because the red blood cells are destroyed by the plasmodium. And so I want us to briefly discuss malaria and its life cycle plus the drugs that are used, after which we'll close the lecture. So what is malaria? Malaria is a condition or disease caused by parasite called plasmodium. Now, the plasmodium is of 4 species, different species. We have Plasmodium vivax, Plasmodium falciparum, Plasmodium ovale, and Plasmodium malariae. Out of the 4, it is Plasmodium falciparum which is very notorious. And these species of Plasmodia are geographically distributed. And they usually are geographically distributed, but the P. falciparum has been seen to be the most abundant in tropical regions. And generally, the mosquitoes, the plasmodia is spread from one person to another by a vector called mosquito, and generally it is the Anopheles mosquito that causes that. And how this malarial parasite gets introduced into our body is best followed in the life cycle of the plasmodium, which is here. And when you look here, you see that we have the mosquito, Anopheles mosquito, innocently coming in the name of feeding. So it comes to feed on the body, sucking blood, but in the process, it introduces the plasmodium into the blood system. Now let's look at the different stages of the plasmodia in the life cycle. First, we see the plasmodium in form of a spore, which we call a sporozoid, that exists in the gut of the mosquito. And when this mosquito comes to bite a healthy person, it injects the parasite into the bloodstream. And this sporozoid will migrate to liver and transform into merozoid, which sometimes we refer to as liver seasoned or hypnozoid. And this will undergo repeated cell division mitotically, and this mitotic cell division now will burst open from the liver cells and get released into the blood stream. And this, once this liver stage of plasmodia gets bursted and is released into the red blood cells, it actually goes into erythrocytic stage. From liver stage, which is liver hypnozoid or seasoned, it now goes to blood seasoned, which is the erythrocytic stage of the mosquito. And that will continue to repeatedly divide to form more merozoids. And these merozoids, when they continue repeating in the mitosis, they end up maturing and transform into gametocytes, which form the male and female gametes. And when these male and female gametes are taken up by mosquito during blood meal, the two gametes now fuse together to get fertilized. And the fertilization occurs in the gut of the mosquito. And that alone now forms zygote, and the zygote will develop in form of aukinate, which transists into oocyte, and the oocyte will continue to form spores in the gut of the mosquito and bursts open to be released with the saliva of the mosquito as the mosquito bites a healthy person, eventually now making the life cycle complete. And therefore we have the mosquito, which is the sporozoid stage of the plasmodium, transforming into liver stage of the seasoned, blood seasoned, which is also sometimes called merozoid, or trophozoids, from sporozoid to trophozoid, and eventually from trophozoids now to gametocytes. And the life cycle continues, and that is the summary of the life cycle. Now, the importance of studying this life cycle guides us in choice of drugs to treat malaria. It has been found that all these drugs that are commonly used are actually very aggressive only on erythrocytic stage of plasmodium, which means most of the drugs that we're using currently only treat the malaria when the plasmodium has entered blood circulation. Anything other than that is very difficult to treat. For example, there's no drug that can treat or clear the sporozoid in the gut of a mosquito. If it was there, that would be the best drug. We would simply treat a person with that drug and wait to be bitten by mosquitoes, so that the drug goes into the gut of the mosquito and then it is cleared from there, and no more biting and introduction of plasmodium into the blood system. Then another one is the stage at which the person is brought for treatment. When the person is brought for treatment at late stage, you see that the plasmodium would have transformed into gametocytes, which is very difficult to be treated. That's why there are people who complain that even these common drugs cannot help them, because they come or they start to treat the disease at a late stage when plasmodium has gone into gametocytes and maybe advanced stages, or has, for some people, it has reduced. It has gone into the repeated liver stage. But a life cycle which is not repeated in the liver will be cleared at once the liver stage has entered into the blood system. They will all be cleared eventually, and that is how we can succeed in treating the malaria. However, we see that P. falciparum has been known to cause severe complicated malaria, and it is a giant killer of many lives in Africa and the whole world at large. Therefore, treating malaria precisely will actually help us to manage malaria. But the question is, what is the best way what is the best way of managing malaria in a community. From P3, I remember very well. Once when I joined P3, we were told to list how we can prevent malaria, and we were told we were made to go and practice it in our homes. So we suggested so many ways. One was to slash around, to collect ponds and turn the stagnant waters and drain the stagnant waters and so forth. So many things, which means in reality the best way to manage malaria is to prevent malaria, to prevent infections of malaria. So it can be a best way to deal with malaria. So we must prevent the mosquito bites. Those activities were just aimed to reduce the mosquito population as well as to avoid mosquito bites. The commonest we do these days is to let people sleep under net. You only wait to sleep under net. What about when you are cooking, when you are taking alcohol with your colleagues, when you are just for socialization, even when you are relaxing outside? The mosquitoes will bite you, including the type of dresses people take with mini skirts and even putting their chest open. They expose their body to mosquito bites. So how do we succeed? You only wait to go and sleep under net during the night. What about when you're out there? Mosquitoes will continue to bite you. So one of the ways they said yes is to sleep under the net. That's only when you are sleeping. But we should also put on long-sleeved shirts and trousers during our relaxation time, even heavy coats. And we should close windows early to avoid mosquitoes entering into the house. So there are many other ways that